It's the uniqueness of the process that I love so much, and nothing is ever the same. It's all different. Nerikomi is a Japanese word, it's a Japanese process, and nerikomi means to push and to knead. I use a porcelain, and I use Audrey Blackman porcelain. So I would measure out 500 grams of porcelain. I would knead it into a little ball and then create a well in the centre into a kind of crucible. And then I put that back on the scales and set it to tare, and then add 50 grams of colour to the 500 grams of clay. So that's 10%. I then add some water, and with a little wooden stick I mix it into a paste within the crucible. And then I knead it so that it's completely kneaded into the colour. So you end up with a 500 gram slab of porcelain which is coloured. And I would then wrap it in plastic wrap and allow it to rest. I use gradients. I think it adds a lovely subtle twist to the work. And to achieve this, I would have equal quantities of coloured clay. I would then create oblongs with both those colours and then cut a diagonal line through the oblong. So you're left with two wedge-shaped pieces. I've turned one across the other so that the fat end of the orange is at the thin end of the white. And then just tap it on the table to make it neat, and then mark the top of that with cut marks. And the closer the cut marks, the smoother the gradient. And then you can start cutting off along those cut marks. Start with the light end first, the lighter colour, because there's less chance of contamination of colour. So I start with the white end, knead it, and then roll it out to a small oblong, paint it with a bit of water, just to help it stick to the next piece. And so the next piece will have a small piece of orange on it. So knead that thoroughly so it's all incorporated. Add that to the white piece. Cut the next piece off, which will have a bit more orange. Knead it thoroughly, and so on. And then you're building up a graded block, going from white or through all of the tints through to orange at the top. So once you've got your block of white through to orange, pick it up carefully and tap it down to try and get rid of all of the air that might have been incorporated in the process. Put it on your cloth, and you put the cloth over the piece, and by using gentle pressure create a nice smooth oblong. With the gradation facing upwards so you can see, you slice through the bottom of it with your harp. This creates slithers of graded porcelain, which you can then put onto your piece of fabric, and again repeat this process, lay them side by side, and to create the very fine veins that you see, paint the black slip on top of each slither of graded clay, and then you put each slice on top of one another, and this can create the veins of a petal. So once you've got your reformed block with the black lines going through, you can pinch it to make sure there's no air incorporated, and I always try and create a petal shape by pinching the edges together. So creating the gradient is just one of the many patterns that you can use when doing this process. Another way of doing it is by using two plain colours, and again using the black slip in between the two colours. But the other thing you can do with that is cut it diagonally using a mitre tool. So once you've got your block of alternate colours with the black slip in, and if you've got your mitre tool, which I must admit is one of my favourite tools to use, you can cut along this block. And then if you take one of the pieces that you've cut, turn it other way round so that when you actually put it together, it then becomes a chevron shape, which can look like a leaf. When you are going to build something with Nerikomi, a lot of the work happens before you even start to get to the pot stage. So you must have all of your palette ready. So you've got your strips or your circles or your blocks of Marini. Now's the messy bit, because each piece is then coated with a black slip, which helps to bind the pieces together when you actually come to create the piece of material. So now I've got all my pieces together, I'm ready to build a box. I create a template with some card to the size that I want, And that template is then transferred onto a piece of cloth, because it's the piece of cloth that's going to act as the guide when you're building your piece. Once you've marked up your cloth and you've got all of your palette ready, you can start your design. It's completely free fall. I use black clay, and these have been shaped into triangular sections, which when you cut them, you can start filling in all around the petals. So you work along your pattern, you're following the guidelines on your piece of material. When all of the pieces are in place and you're happy with your design, it is time to allow it to rest and firm up a bit. Spray with a little bit of water and wrap it in plastic wrap. And now you're going to compress it and make it one piece of material, because at the moment it looks like a jigsaw, but you are going to make it looking like a complete piece of clay. So you use your guides. You spray some water on it, not too much, because otherwise too much distortion occurs. You lay another piece of fabric on the top, and then you roll the material from the middle out to the outer, and you keep on rolling until you've compressed it enough. And this takes out and gets rid of all the gaps, and it compresses it, and you've now got a complete piece of porcelain with all your lovely colour in it. Time is the issue with all of Nerikomi, so leave it now until it gets leather hard. Then it's treated as a normal slab built pot. Take your template and then you can cut out your shape. Make sure you cut it out carefully. Make sure that you use a set square so that you get nice straight sides. And then you can use your mitre to mitre the corners, and you also going to mitre the base of the box. So making sure you've got all of your pieces in the right order once you turn it over, because your pattern is now going to run through your box, so all the corners except for one will match, which is very important. Once you've mitered, you can score your edges, and then using your black slip to make sure that everything is going to join together nicely. Join all four corners. You do the same with the base, scoring and slipping on both sides, the base and the base of the box, so that you get a lovely flat join. For the corners, I've used the mitered bits that I cut off, and so I've put those in there in the corners just to give it a bit of stability. Now it's time to set it aside. I actually put some newspaper inside the box to support the lid while it's drying. It's very, very delicate at this stage and could easily split. So just be careful, don't handle it too much. Just wrap it well and leave it. This can take months to dry it carefully. I only fire once, and I only fire to 1165. So when your box is fired, it's time to polish it to create this lovely soft surface. So I use diamond pads, and once you've got this lovely silky smooth surface, I then use a wax which gives it a lovely soft sheen, and there you have it. Nerikomi is so absorbing. Nothing is ever the same. You can always get a different result. There's nothing quite as lovely as the reveal when you take a piece of cloth off a pressed piece of Nerikomi material. It can be exciting. It can be frustrating, but it's always absorbing, totally unique, and you never ever master it. There's always learning to be done, and I'm always learning every day. It teaches me something different, mostly patience.